So you heard that China is banning clothes deemed too offensive to the nation's feelings, but did you know that's not even the worst part of the new law? The CCP just reinforced the police state. Welcome to China Insider, I'm David Zhang. Chinese police are now the judge, the jury, and the executioner in one. Now, recently China passed a new law suggesting that they're going to ban clothes deemed offensive to the nation's feelings. It allows Chinese police to obtain search warrants from the police bureau instead of the court and carry out inspections, detainment, and punishment without another cop present. In other words, Chinese Judge Dredd. As part of the new amendments to a police punishment law, Article 34 details extensively how the police can fine you or detain you for up to 15 days for shaming heroes and martyrs, and wearing clothes deemed too offensive for the nation's feelings, whatever that means. The changes do not specify what images or words are offensive, so to play it safe, just wear mouse suits, but maybe even that's offensive. It can also punish you for spreading and making speeches or words that hurt the spirit of the Chinese nation or hurt the feelings of the Chinese nation. Watch out, they may be locking you up in something like this if you do offend them. Now, hurting the feelings of the Chinese people is what they often use to criticize or to repel against the foreign governments or brands for allegedly offending China. But it's more about offending the CCP. And now it's being turned against the Chinese people themselves. And the question is, who is to say what is offensive and what is not? Clearly, now the police will be given a directive by the central government of an ever-growing list of changing offensive stuff. Now, the first thing I'm reminded of is North Korea, where an American tourist was jailed and tortured for taking something from a hotel there. Check out this video.
问你挺过了是因为我是外国人吗？
我等到你9点半。
不是，我们中国人也一样的。
中国人罚得更惨。
中国人罚得更惨。
他是很专业的，非常专业。
Yeah, word of advice, if you go to China, don't wear clothes. Well, I mean, you do wear clothes, but just don't wear clothes deemed too offensive. But David, how would I ever know which piece of clothing is actually offensive? Exactly. Now, this public security punishment law actually went into effect back in 2006 and has gone through 2 rounds of changes, and this is the latest one, and has further emboldened the CCP's police state. Now, it reminds me of this.
Right to jail. You're playing music too loud, right to jail, right away. You're driving too fast, jail. Slow, jail. You're charging too high prices for sweaters, glasses, you right to jail. You undercook fish, believe it or not, jail. You overcook chicken, also jail. Undercook, overcook. You make an appointment with the dentist and you don't show up, believe it or not, jail, right away. We have the best patients in the world because of jail.
Now, funny enough, the new amendments really focus on getting the cops into your house, right? All they need now for inspection is a document issued by a public security organ at the county level or above when they want to inspect the citizen's residence. And according to Article 100 in this new amendment, when deemed necessary, it allows the police to come into your home and demand biological sampling. Yeah, so Chinese cops can now come into your house and demand you pee in a cup or draw blood from you. Super weird. Now, the new set of proposed changes drew 90,000 submissions from people basically criticizing the attempt to ban people from wearing clothes that are deemed offensive. So that's a big ratio considering how many other ones that they get on the other articles. But the backlash against the proposed amendment has come from public intellectuals and influencers. A lot of the reaction has been negative. Now, the focus is mostly on Article 34 because it's just so vague on what it's trying to do here. Now, for example, Tong Zhiwei, a professor at East China University of Political Science and Law, wrote on Weibo, quote, "The law is something that regulates human behavior, and scientific legislation requires legislators always avoid making regulations on matters of spirit and feelings." As well as Lan Dongyan, a professor of criminal law at Tsinghua University, wrote, quote, "National spirit and national feelings are matters at the cultural and spiritual level. The state can advocate them, but they should not be promoted through legal coercion." She also says that the law is too vague. But I think that's, again, the best part about this, for the police, that is. What people don't seem to be discussing, though, is the changes to how police can now obtain search warrants and search your home. The new amendment actually allows police to investigate and carry out punishment without the need for a second police officer present, which means they can execute everything on their own. And they can now obtain search warrants from the local police bureau, right, rather than the court. Now, normally you have to get a search warrant from the court to even go into somebody's houses. Now they can just get it from their buddies at, down the street from the police bureau. They can skip the entire judicial system and go right to the end result: judge, jury, executioner. Now, most people see the new changes to the article of clothing as one of further encroachment on controlling people's speech. But if we don't reject the whole aspect that is giving more power to the police to search and seize assets from people, all under the legality of this new law, then what we'll see is the creation of a total police state right before our eyes. And it'll be like the Gestapo or the SS. Now, this would be a sense of inevitability to some, right? People realize that they've already been under this type of control for a very long time. No matter what the government does, it eventually will reach this point, right, where more police control, given the current domestic instability in China. Even though the banning of words and clothing is rather bizarre, the big issue here is you have to somehow resist that, right? The police, they can now arrest people or punish people simply because they feel like it. And they now have the legal background to do so. Arresting or determining how severe the crime is, they're all up to the police at the time. And knowing the corruption of the Chinese police, they can easily make you suffer. Prior to this expansion, people were often punished for the so-called crime of picking quarrels and provoking trouble, which basically means that they try to start, or they were trying to attempt, say, to criticize the government. Then they will get the charge of the incitement to subvert the political power of the state, which basically means you try to overthrow the government, even though you were just offering criticism. But now with all Chinese law, the question is really about what is being interpreted, or the big question mark here is who is the law targeting? And obviously, off the top of my head, there's some groups like dissidents, religious groups, political enemies, perhaps even street vendors, basically regular people, right? These don't apply to the communist officials unless it's due to a political reason. And whatever the law says, if the interpretation of the law is that you're offending the state or the people, even though you're not really offending the people, but they say you are, can you really argue otherwise? You can't. If they deem you're offensive, you're branded offensive. There's no coming back from it. For example, with a focus on so-called offensive clothing, it's going to target people who wear clearly politically incorrect clothes, right? Like the Japanese kimono or maybe even a t-shirt with the American flag on it. Who is really the one here to determine the offensiveness? Is there a scale of 1 to 10 on what article of clothing is more offensive? Is the kimono more offensive than the American flag shirt? Or what about a Western suit? What about those luxury clothing brands that Chinese rich ladies love to wear because their Communist Party husbands bought them with the money that they took? And of course, what happens with luxury brands that offended China, or even just regular brands like Nike, H&M, or Bulgari recently? And if, what do you get for eating McDonald's or KFC in China, or Pizza Hut, or Starbucks? People love drinking Starbucks in China. Will you be seen by someone as offending the state or the nation's feelings simply because you're drinking or eating a foreign brand, right? Somebody messed in the head wants to be a pro-CCP dog is going to report you. Remember, Article 34 is so vague. It basically encompasses everything but also nothing at the same time. It's all about what's the issue at the time. I mean, does watching Japanese anime count? Or what about owning a BMW or Mercedes, right? All of these things, they can be easily offended. And what really is this about? It's about the police wanting to have more control, and they simply want to find trouble in you, then you're just out of luck, right? He just simply doesn't see you straight at the day. Maybe he just was really mad and he wanted to vent some frustration. There's nothing to stop him now. So China's already a comprehensive surveillance state, right? With more CCTV cameras than any other country. And its facial and ID tracking and recognition system is already in place. And that's equally draconian. Now adding more police power is just a full march toward digital totalitarianism, spelling the doom of the entire Chinese society. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comment about what's happening in this new law. It's essentially the creation of, it's a police state, right? Before it was already there, but now it's totally there. All right, if you enjoy the content, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. This is China Insider. I'm David Zhang. We'll see you next time.